venez, venez.
One of the first few things that my husband and I agreed on when I moved to Paris to be with him was that we will make it a point to take weekend trips to the countryside, to the seaside, because I spent 6 years in the Normandy region in a city by the sea, and I do miss the nature very much, and I miss the sea as well. We saw this listing of a tiny house in the middle of the countryside in Airbnb, and we thought that it was really perfect for a restful weekends. While we share with you the weekends, I would like to also share with you the things that I wished I knew before moving to France. I think one of the biggest thing I wish I knew was how much the language would restrict me and would impact my quality of life. The most surprising thing that I realized about myself was actually that I have a huge ego and I'm a perfectionist and I'm afraid to make mistakes. I'm still using the present tense because I feel that this is still something that I struggle a lot with until now. Being afraid to make mistakes means that it's extremely slow to learn.
Is it Hunter?
Yeah.
No, really. So we can die. I think we shouldn't go to the forest. If they hit on you and then you die, it happens, huh?
Okay. Let's go. Another thing I wish I knew was how important eating culture here is, how much emphasis there are about many things related to the eating culture, and I could probably devote one video on this. The first lesson I learned when I missed my lunchtime was that there is actually very strict meal times here. They are almost sacred. Lunchtime is from 12 to 2:30 p.m. and dinner is from 7 to 9:30 p.m. In big cities like Paris, you can find restaurants that extend their hours of operation or even have the restaurant open the whole day. But in small cities and small towns, if you don't respect this timing, you run into the risk of having nothing to eat at all. The only thing, if you're lucky, that's available to you is a sandwich from a bakery. So the first time it happened to me, I literally cried because I had to eat sandwiches from the bakery, and from where I came from, this is just, well, I don't want to sound like I'm so spoiled, but we usually have normal meals. They are not expensive. They're just 4 or 5 Sing dollars, which is probably 3 euros. But food is available all the time. And eating bread seems like a nice thing for the French, but it's not something that we are used to coming from the Asian country. So I learned this lesson. I never make the same mistake again. Speaking about activities and being out of my shell and having hobbies and, well, being restricted by the language barrier itself, I also didn't realize that activities in France operate on a yearly cycle, and typically it starts from September till June, then we break for summer break. When I first arrived, it was February, so it was really in the middle of the cycle. In the smaller town, especially, it is very rigid. It can be difficult to join the activities by then because you have to sign up by September for the year. Is this okay? I want to quickly explain what's happening in these few shots. While the guy was swimming, there were also a lot of cars honking in the background. Those were the wedding party. In France, when someone gets married, their wedding party, their friends are honking along the way, I guess to wish the couple a good marriage. Activities are organized into clubs here. For example, we have soccer clubs, dance clubs, tennis clubs. You have to sign up with them so that you secure your place. They come with committees and annual membership fees, and these are not expensive in my opinion. They are pretty affordable. Where I came from is very different in terms of how activities are organized. We generally have classes all around the whole year, and if we speak about something like yoga studio, we have even many classes in one day and many classes in the week. But my experience here, with especially in the smaller towns and cities, there's often only just one lesson per week, and therefore it's necessary to secure your place in said activity because it only happens once a week. Of course, in Paris, this is much more loose. There are more slots and more classes per week. Over the years, I've managed to join various classes and clubs. I've done activities such as yoga, dancing, learning to sail, learning ceramics, learning calligraphy, learning painting, and horse riding. And I'm very happy to say that all of them had been in French. Not that I understood most of it, but I'm happy to be out there and doing some things. At least I'm doing something. We're here and we came from here. Not bad. When we are debating about a topic, it's often seen as an intellectual exchange. It's not offensive, and of course it can be very heated for the people. They can agree to disagree, but the whole process is that it has to be stimulating. They eventually could spend 1 or 2 hours discussing about a topic and then walked away with no conclusion. And this is very weird for me because coming from the other side of the world, we were taught to always have some sort of conclusion to a topic. We would always take a stand on the topic, whether we are against or supportive, and usually we stick by it. But for the French, there is usually no conclusion at the end, and I realized this has to be attributed to something about our differences in the education. In Asia, we are taught to take a stand in our essay writing to defend our point of view, but in France, often it's about talking about both sides of the argument and ending with a more exploratory question rather than a conclusion. So I try to explain this here, but I'm not sure if I'm clear enough. It's a long day today, and we went to the supermarket and we decided to buy something frozen so it's easy to cook. Just pop it into the oven. This is for apero. The herring fish, smoked carrots, and then some beans and grapes for dessert. Put on the lights, and I'm not going to show what's inside, of course, but I think this tells you how it works. So what the owner did was this pail inside with a plastic bag. I think the plastic bag is kind of special, maybe ecologic as well. So you do your things, and then they will collect it and then put it into compost for the plants. For the farm, because we're living in the middle of a farm. It's a dry toilet, no water at all, and there are wood shavings here, which you can dump after you do your stuff. So far, so good. We are not smelling anything. Yeah, it's pretty clean, I would say. But yeah, totally something that takes a while to get used to. So let me switch off the light. You don't realize that there are different culture and cultural clashes until, say, a group of friends from my past life in Asia meet current group of friends in, say, France. One big difference is the idea of work identity. In Asia, in the social setting, it is very common to talk about work because work is the primary identity that we feel attached to. For example, I work at where and I work as blah blah blah, and we often spend much time and focus on that because that places you in some sort of social hierarchy as well in Asia. However, in France, it's more neutral. In the social setting, we normally do not talk much about our work because that's really boring. People are interested in people, not their day job. So even if we touch the topic of, okay, this is my day job, I work as a blah blah blah, it's often one or two sentences of exchange, and then we moved on to other topics which are more interesting. So for someone who came from Asia, they would think that people are not interested in them just because this conversation didn't continue. But for the French people, they will feel that, on the contrary, why are we just always talking about work only and nothing else in a social setting?
What?
How do we try it? Okay, let's do the toilets. Wow, it's so heavy.
Bravo. Congratulations.
Another thing I wish I knew more about was how cold the French people could be. And let me explain that a bit more. So apparently they are warm and they are cold hospitality countries, and some countries are just colder, and some countries are more welcoming in a way to foreigners in hospitality. And France belongs to the cold side. In Asia, we would go out of our way to make the foreigner or the guest feel very welcomed. We would offer help. We would explain in English, for example, if something is not spoken in English, we would make sure to settle in nicely. But in France, on the other hand, it's not very welcoming for foreigners, and I've certainly felt that not very welcomed. And I wouldn't say that it's the fault of the people. It is just the way it is. It's just how things are here. French, they treasure personal space, and they feel that I probably need the personal space as well. So in the beginning, it was really hard to accept this or to understand this, because I had struggled for maybe 2 to 3 years of feeling not welcomed. And if you add on all the challenges that you already have in a foreign country, it is especially tough. And part of this, of course, got to do with the language barrier as well. I have sat through parties of 6-7 hours and been through 2 days of wedding without actually talking to people. I called myself like a flower vase, and in Asia we would never allow a guest to be left alone or at the corner like a flower vase. But in France, it seems totally acceptable to people. And to me, until today, I still feel that it's kind of weird to see something and not do something about it. Second last thing before we end this video is something about the society. In Asian society, it is much more like a communal society. We are less self-centered and we think about others. Of course, there are always exceptions to this, and we have selfish people or self-centered people. But in France, it is much more an individualistic society. I meant this by that French people are much thinking about themselves and not about others. For example, they do not feel that their actions or behaviors inconvenience others. They often only think about how convenient or right it is for them. And in France, we often talk about the rights to do certain things, and as long as you have the rights to do them, you have no wrong, basically. Inconveniencing your neighbors or people around you, even though you have the rights to do it. But in France, we will only focus on the rights. For example, my neighbor was playing very loud music on a Saturday afternoon. By the French law, they have every right to do whatever they want on a Saturday afternoon, including playing really loud music. However, it is bothering people because it was really loud. So in this situation, if I were to ask my neighbor to tune down the volume, he would say that he has the rights to do it. He does have the rights, and he's not wrong about his rights. However, he failed to understand that he's being inconsiderate to the neighbors around him. And this is one of the biggest differences in approaching disputes, I would say, in between my culture and French culture. So it's hard to actually explain this until recently. Perhaps the biggest surprise was that I realized France could actually feel like home. Of course, it didn't happen overnight, and of course, there are many challenges. But somewhere along the way, I fell in love with this country, even the French people, the culture, the cuisine, and the beauty of daily life here. At the same time, living here has made me appreciate Singapore even more, and I just didn't realize how is it possible to love two countries, two cultures, and two different lifestyles, and not have to choose one over another. To be honest, they coexist in me, and I feel very blessed to be able to call both countries my home. And yeah, I would like to just focus on the good things coming from these two countries. I hope you enjoyed this very long video, and maybe let me know in the comments on what kind of topics you will be interested to hear from me. See you next time.